Are you guys dying to the magic hat ladies? The chonky, thick ice boy?
Trash.
And the samurai wannabe with a pushpin? Do you guys like big booty delicious damage? Well, you came to the right video. Today, we have the top 5 best teams to use in Honkai Starrail, and let's kick it with number 1 on the list. The first team we have is Welt Hypercarry. Yes, you heard it, folks. Welt is extremely strong right now, and for all the Welt enjoyers, he has made it into the top 5 list. Right now, imaginary damage is quite effective in MOC 10, as some of the more tankier enemies have imaginary weakness on them, and not only that, Welt himself has some very strong strengths here. This is a team that focuses on dealing AoE imaginary damage with decent single target. His ultimate having very good AoE damage hitting everything on the field, which is great for eliminating squishier enemies and also essentially freezing them into place with the imprison effect. His ability to slow enemies with his skill as well as his ultimate is super strong, as we are in a speed meta, and much of these teams in this list will revolve around abusing this mechanic. Back to the team though, Welt's technique is very strong entering the battle, imprisoning enemies, delaying their actions by 20% and their speed by 10%. All of these abilities are in this one character, which in itself is a very valuable thing to have. On top of all of this, he actually has very good personal damage, which you can easily make him either a hyper carry, where Welt is doing the majority of the damage, or you can put him in teams where he can be used as a sub DPS / debuffer. Today we are going to talk about his hyper carry comp, where he is doing most of the damage. And this is where we see characters that really highlight his strengths. We have Yukong, who is the primary choice for Harmony characters in this team. A big reason is her crit rate, crit damage, as well as the attack buffs applying to all of her teammates, as well as herself. And a big thing here is her bonus ability giving increased imaginary damage by 12%. Following that, she makes a very good sub DPS for this team, as she has decent single target damage. A popular choice for the third spot is either Pela or Asta, Pela giving debuffs, or Asta giving speed and attack buffs. And for the fourth slot, a healer or abundance character is needed, and so if you have Luocha, he will be the primary choice, but others can work well if you invest into them. I think some cons about this team is it's not very easy to build and requires a lot of time to invest, as you need decent stats on every single character to really see that damage come out of Welt and Yukong. But otherwise, this is a strong team, and try it out if you can. On to number 4 on the list is the Yongqing Hypercarry team. Yongqing himself has lost a little bit of strength, as the meta is more focusing on characters that can do high AoE damage, and a hunt character like Yongqing having no AoE does fall behind here. But that does not discredit the insane numbers that you can put out with this character, as well as the disciples having ice weakness on them. This team heavily revolves around doing insane single target damage, eliminating high HP targets in a few amount of turns. Yongqing having the very strong freeze mechanic, which can sometimes skip the enemy's turn without breaking the shield, comes in pretty clutch when you need it the most. You're going to be able to freeze with your follow-up attacks relatively often, as long as you have a decent amount of effect hit rate. Moving on to the actual team, a key character you really want in this team is Tingyun. This is because Yongqing has a really high ultimate cost, and he would really benefit from that 50 energy that you can put into the ultimate charge. Not only that, but you're getting attack and damage buffs, as well as speed buffs if you have her E1, which all of these will heavily increase Yongqing's damage output. In the third slot, we actually have Pela, and her pick rate is seeing a very high increase due to the enemies having ice weakness. But not only that, the ability to essentially break down the enemy's defenses and the removal of one buff is actually so underrated against the Shapeshifter, who can regenerate a huge amount of HP when attacking you. The fact that Pela can remove this buff essentially makes this a much easier fight. She can also increase Yongqing's damage with her E4, shredding ice resistance by 12%, as well as having AoE toughness break, which does help with Yongqing's lack of AoE. A character I would recommend on the 4th slot is Japard, as he fits with Yongqing's passive very well, but sometimes shields won't be enough, so the next popular pick is Luocha for that extra survivability, as well as the other abundance characters. Some cons about this team is again the lack of AoE, and sometimes I feel that the team is squishier and harder to survive compared to a lot of the other teams, because Yongqing really doesn't want to take damage to keep up his passive, and if you don't have a strong Japard shield, this team's overall damage will hurt quite a bit. Overall, a strong team for this Memory of Chaos, and have some fun doing some insane ice damage. So now we made it to the top 3 best teams in Honkai Star Rail. Just a disclaimer, these 3 are very hard to put a ranking on, so just know that they all have similar strength and power level and how meta they are. And just want to remind you guys to like the video down below if you guys are enjoying this video. I appreciate it tons. So taking our 3rd spot is going to be the Blade Hyper Carry team. This character is just bonkers right now. Blade is a tanky character who wants to get hit to activate his counter mechanic, as well as regaining that health back on hit, which makes him pretty hard to kill. Wind weakness is also pretty common in MOC 10, and not to my surprise, Blade destroys the second half of MOC 10. He has great AoE damage, specifically targeting 3 enemies, and then his follow-up attack can actually hit all enemies on the field, which makes him awesome at clearing a lot of the squishier enemies. And the thing is, he actually has very strong single target. I think Blade is a jack of all trades. He can pretty much do anything. He has the best of both worlds and can excel in doing all types of damage. The team is also great for point management since Blade primarily uses his basic attack, allowing your other characters to use their skills more often. His best pairing is with Bronya, as she can allow him to advance in the action order to help his bar reach 5 stacks, allowing his counter attack to activate much quicker. And then in the 3rd slot, you really want to run another buffer slash debuffer that can be point positive. And again, you'll see a ton of people actually running Pela. But another choice is Asta for her speed buffs. But a reason why people are using Pela is because he doesn't really benefit from the attack buffs as much. Moving on to the 4th slot, you'll see a lot of Luocha on this team because he's a perfect pairing for Blade when he hits really low health, as well as his cleanse and the removal of buffs towards the enemies. I really think this team is crazy good right now, and Blade himself is going to be up there in the tier list for a while. But some weaknesses though I find about this team is that there's not really good flexibility with Blade. He doesn't really benefit from the attack buffs, so Tingyun and Asta aren't really the best choice, but they are usable. Another character that might fit is Yukong, as she buffs crit, but that's the only other Harmony option. But other than the tight character options that you have, if you have this specific team, you will climb easily in the MOC ladder, and you're gonna have a bunch of fun doing it. Taking our number 2 spot is, you guessed it, Seele Hyper Carry. This team has just gotten better these past patches, and with the addition of Fushuan in 1.3, Seele's power level will get even higher. In the current Memory of Chaos, Seele is still very strong in the first half, as Quantum Weakness is on most enemies, but the last 2 maiden enemies do not. This team is very strong in single target, with huge damage coming from Seele, being able to speedrun through the first half of MOC in about 5 to 6 turns. The ability Resurgence mostly being able to one-shot the mosquitoes, and then utilizing that damage buff from Resurgence to deal more damage to the higher HP enemies. The team includes Tingyun for the extra energy and damage buffs. You're also going to see Bailu specifically for her healing, and Silverwolf for her defense shred, as well as her very powerful weakness application, where you can apply any weakness onto the enemy based on your team. Because Silverwolf is here, she's going to be really powerful for Seele, as it makes this team work in a variety of situations and not just quantum weak enemies, which makes this team very good at clearing both halves of MOC 10. This team does have a few cons. It is that it's not very easy to play. Someone who doesn't really know about optimal rotations isn't going to really see success, and it's going to hurt your runs losing out on a ton of damage. You're also not going to be able to bail out of mistakes compared to the other teams because it's a very squishy team. I'd like to say that it's high risk, high reward, where you can deal a ton of damage, but you can get 2-shot very easily. Something you can do though is switch out a few of the teammates. You can put in Natasha for her cleanse and Fire MC for his taunt and defensive abilities. This will not only give you higher survivability, you'll also get that cleanse from Natasha that Bailu doesn't have, which is pretty powerful as CC from enemies are getting more prevalent. I do think that this team could possibly be even better with the addition of Fushuan, creating a pure mono quantum team, and we're going to talk about that more in the next upcoming video. But overall, this team is an awesome choice for the first half of MOC. Taking our number 1 spot on the list is the Kafka Dot team. As soon as Kafka came out, the Nihility path immediately became regarded as a top tier path. Characters like Sampo have skyrocketed in pick rate, and the new addition Luca from the Nihility path is seeing some very popular play in the Memory of Chaos. And the new meta that is dot damage is leaded by Kafka. So let's get into it. Now, there are a few teams that are worth mentioning in this video, such as Crit Kafka, including Silverwolf and Tingyun, which also has a good damage output, but I want to mention this specific team, which includes Kafka, Tingyun, Asta, and Sompo. As we can see, there are no abundance or preservation characters to maintain the survivability, but to our surprise, it is still one of the best record teams used in this MOC. To put it simply, why it's the best is it's too fast. The strengths of the team is its speed, ability to manipulate the action order, and by manipulate I mean break the entire system, and also has high single target with high AoE damage. This team also has a lot of speed implemented in the buffs, which gives Kafka plenty of use with her skills, and the synergy of this team is unmatched. Every time the enemy has a turn, they're going to take a huge amount of dot damage. It really is a surprise, as the best characters to use with Kafka are specifically 4-star characters. Some weaknesses of this team though is the requirement to invest. You need very specific relics and main stats on each character. But something to note, this is for the 0 cycle run. You can easily swap Tingyun for Bailu and you're pretty much set. Another weakness with this specific team is I don't think it will work in the next few Memory of Chaoses. There are going to be different enemies and they're probably going to nerf this team somehow, adding enemies that can effectively slow you down or just are resistant to dot damage. Overall, the Kafka dot team is awesome to play and you're going to be able to breeze through the first half of Memory of Chaos. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for the top 5 best teams in Honkai Star Rail patch 1.2. This video was released just before patch 1.3 and we're gonna see Imbibitor Don Hung and Fushuan coming in the next patch tomorrow. I'll be doing a before you pull for both characters and who should you pull between the characters, and those videos will come in the next week. I also want to give a huge thank you to the content creators that were featured in this video. They had some amazing clears, and check their channels out down below, and I'll have a link to the MOC 10 clears. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's list, and leave a like on the video. Smash that subscribe button if you guys want to see more top 5 content, and I'll see you guys very soon. Take care.